So we're on to number 4. You've been thinking about your title, you've been thinking about your aims and objectives, and you've been particularly thinking about the angles you're going to use, the models you're going to use to actually measure things like performance. Now, at some point, you've got to articulate all this in a very clear way to set yourself and the reader up, ready to start reading with confidence. As I've said before, we form an impression very early on. If we can't understand where you're going, why you're going there, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, we are befuddled and confused. And what's worse is we know already that you are too. So you've really got to work at this, because if you get this right, pretty much everything, if you work at it, is going to go well. If you get it wrong, pretty much no matter how hard you work at it, it's going to get worse. So please, 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 this is something that's absolutely, as you would say, primordial. We don't use that word in English in this context. To get this thing right. So what is the introduction? When do you write it? How do you write it? What goes in it? Okay, so the moment that you have sent your tutor, your prof référent, an idea of a well thought out title and the aims and objectives and a rough idea of how you're going to go about doing this, your tutor will have been able to give you some good advice. A green light, maybe, instantly. That's superb, entirely doable, no problem, go ahead with confidence. And at that point, you can start writing your introduction. And you should do, because it will give you an immense amount of confidence to feel that you've not left this until after your placement, your stage. You've actually started now. You've got it underway. And while it's in your head, while you're clear about it, it's always best to articulate it and set it up, even if you have to leave it for a little bit while you do your reviewing of the literature, which is going to take you some time. But if you've got that introduction well written, you know where you're going, and you know your tutor will know where you're going. So that should give you an immense amount of confidence. If, however, you refer something to your tutor, you've given him details, and the tutor says, I'm not convinced about that. I think you might have a problem with this. I think it's too big. This is a PhD or an habilitation. It's not really a rapport de stage. You need to narrow it down somehow. Well, you've got to think about how to do that. Don't do it globally. Don't just do it for France. Do it for Alsace or do it for Mulhouse. You can geographically shrink things down. If you're looking at a process, the whole of the process from the beginning to the end, maybe just do this part or that part. There are ways of narrowing it down. So whatever your tutor says to you, think long and hard about it. They're saying it to you because they're actually trying to help you. They're not trying to be a pain by saying, no, I really don't want to approve this. They're actually trying to save you problems later. And later, you will have far less time to be able to manage those problems. So whatever your tutor says, please, please, please work at it until they can say, okay, fine, take it away, roll with it. So your introduction, what needs to be in your introduction? A restatement of your title, what it actually means. Where are its limits? Are there specific things that you are excluding from it that the reader might normally expect to find there? You need to make that clear. If there are key terms that you are using in those titles, especially if they are terms that come from your particular company, what exactly do you mean by those terms? For example, with my students in museums and archivistique, if they write in a title, preservation and conservation, I'm immediately thinking, I know what my definition of preservation is and my definition of conservation is, but I'm betting it's different to yours. What do you mean? So critical terms in that title, you need to explain to us at the beginning. You also need to give us a rationale. Why the hell are you doing this? Why do you feel you are particularly well placed to do this? Does the fact that you are working at this level within the hierarchy, that level between customers and clients at the end, or suppliers, does that give you some kind of unique view? Why is it particularly important to the company? Where's the win-win situation for them? Where's the end point of this? Where's this all going to be leading to? Now, you might not be able to say exactly when you start. This will justify why the company must do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You don't know that yet. You haven't done the research. But you may be able to say, this will ultimately offer the company a how-to guide to improve this process and manage this process to far greater effect so that it becomes more efficient, more effective, and more economical. So we need to have a vision of where your title is ultimately going to lead us. What's the end point? If we know where you're starting, we know where you're going, and you're about to give us the aims and objectives to show how you're going to get there, we're clear. But if you don't tell us, do you really know what you're doing? And how are we supposed to divine what it is that you are attempting to do? So you then need to specify your aims and objectives. And I've talked a little bit about those. They need to be very, very clear, not overlapping, bullet pointed so that they stand out with some explanation for each one of them. Perhaps between 3 and 4 or 7 or 8 of them, but no more and no less than that. They need to be separate, discrete, and non-overlapping. And they need to add up to 100%, not 150% of what was in your title, not 73%. You don't want to be wasting your time doing too much. You don't want to be doing too little, because we're going to criticize you for missing stuff out that you promised. So you give us your aims and objectives. Then give us a sense of how you're going to attack this whole thing. What is the process you're going to use, and when we turn the page, what's the structure of the report? Effectively, give us the skeleton, the skelette. So that if you give us that, when we turn the page, we know what's coming. It's the head. We know what's coming after that. It's the shoulders, whatever it happens to be. And we can piece your information onto that skeleton to get the full body, the entire effect of what you're doing. How long is this? Maybe 2 or 3 pages. On my website, under the Stagiaires tab, I have an introduction written by a past student called Charlotte Chauffai. I am not saying it's perfect. She is not claiming it was perfect either, but I can say with a lot of certainty that when I read it, I was entirely clear in what she was doing, why she was doing it, and how she was going to go about doing it. And it really set things up admirably for me as a reader. I was already thinking, this has got to be a 15 or 16. The student is so clear about what they're doing. So in this case, I would recommend that you have a look at that. Don't copy it. That's not the intention. And it's plagiarism, so you're not allowed to. But if you want to have a look at something that embodies the type of recommendations I'm giving you, it's on my website, Tone University, under the Stagiaires tab. Have a look. Okay, thanks very much. We're now moving on to the next bit after the introduction, which is going to be the literature review, also called secondary research. What is it and why are you doing it here? What's the point of doing it? Is it just to satisfy us because we're academics, so we want to see you read some of our writing? Nothing to do with that at all. So wait for the next video, which will help explain the role of it and how you use your conclusions that you draw from that review of what currently exists. And at the end, you should come up with something that I term a research gap. I'll explain that in the next video. Okay, thank you very much.